I'm Dan Rundy. I'm co-director of the new U.S. Leadership and Development Project here at CSIS. We had our launch event on Friday with General Jones and Dr. Rice talking about foreign assistance in the national interest. The clip you're going to see is Dr. Rice's answer to why is foreign assistance relevant to the American people and why is it in America's national interest to invest in foreign assistance.
I know one of the things that you need, both of you, miss the least out of being out of office is testifying in front of the Congress. So I will posit that as a starting point, but let me ask you hypothetically to put yourself back in the witness seat, and you're trying to say to this Congress, why is it worth spending money on development for other people? This is a hard message right now.
Yeah, it's a really hard message, and it's a hard message because we have a huge deficit reduction debate, and we can get into the ins and outs of what actually causes deficits. But I think that the argument that Jim started with and that I started with, this is of course a moral cause, and as President Bush used to say very often, to whom a lot is given, we owe a lot, and it's true, and so morally we have an obligation. However, if I can't convince you of the moral argument, let me convince you of the practical argument. You don't want another Afghanistan out there. You don't want the northern border of Mexico to look like a failed state. You don't want Yemen to, as it's doing, break into civil war and become the new Somalia or the new Afghanistan. How many times do we have to learn that ungoverned territory where governments cannot deliver for their people and where hopelessness and chaos reign are a problem for us? And so let's remember what has happened when the United States has put its mind to helping to deal with chaos. World War II is probably the best example. In 1947, 2 million Europeans were still starving. People were seriously talking about communism, not just in Eastern Europe, but when the Italian communists won 48% of the vote in 1946, and the French communists 48% of the vote, people were talking about a communist Western Europe. And it was the foresight of the United States to engage in free trade, economic development, nation building in Europe that led not just to a stable western half of Europe, but ultimately defeated the Soviet Union and has now led to a Europe that's mostly whole, free, and at peace. So we can pretend that it doesn't matter that there are these places out there that are ungoverned spaces, places where people live on $1 a day, places that are chaotic because there's neither security nor prosperity, and that doesn't affect us. But it is most certainly going to affect us. And we can't have a short-term view of our interest that just tries to put a barrier around us and to defend in that static way. And so I think there's a very powerful argument for the practical need for the continued engagement with countries. But I will say two things. Those of us who want to make that argument owe two more sentences. Paul Applegarth is here. He was the first MCC. Mm-hmm. We're not going to fund corrupt governments and corrupt officials who line their own pockets. That's not what we're asking the American people to do. We're going to insist on fighting corruption. Your dollars will be well spent. Secondly, we're going to get our internal act together so that we don't have every American governmental agency and institution competing, redundant, trying to do the same things, doing the same thing year in, year out, whether or not it's working or not. The U.S. government has to be organized and efficient in how it delivers foreign assistance too. The delivery of our foreign assistance costs too much. And so we have to add those two sentences to the strong moral and practical appeal that we're going to do a better job of delivering foreign assistance, and we're going to care a lot about to whom it's delivered.